And good morning. How we doing this morning?
Oh, you're asking me.
Hey,
I thought you were asking
how you doing,
them.
sugar? Well, Patrick seems to have drawn first blood, but apparently he's already said good morning to the Smadge, which means that people have been commenting before we started. So, out of curiosity, I'm going to pop over and see what I can see. Good Lord, y'all been just running your mouths.
Oh, wow.
And it looks like Patrick indeed drew first blood. Well played. Well played, my man. So, Cameron, what are we talking about this morning?
We're talking about the QAnon shaman.
So, let's be clear. I have referred to him, and I prefer that we refer to him for the rest of this video as the Q-Shaman, and we leave off the statement of anonymity for purposes of the algorithm. I would be surprised. In fact, let's. I'm going to pull up. I'm going to pull up today's video again, real quick. See, I said Q-Shaman. Q-Shaman. I didn't use the other word. And thus far, we have avoided taking a flag.
Well, we're talking about him going to jail. I don't think the algorithm's going to hit us too hard. So
Well, and I mean, we're gonna see the full name in the headlines as we discuss this. But there are a few big takeaways from the Q-Shaman conviction. And let's read the article first, and then I want to dig into the major takeaways. The fact of the matter here is that this is justice delayed and denied. Right? There is no justice in this conviction, which, by the way, is not a full-throated defense of what he or any of the other people did. I'm happy to offer a full-throated defense quite separately, but the January 6th protest was not perfect by any stretch, largely because it was a trap. I mean, the glowworms in this operation, and I honestly harbor some suspicions of the shaman, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. So the Q-Shaman Jacob Chansley sentenced to 41 months in prison for role in January 6th attack. It's that seems a little severe, all things considered. Washington, the man known as the Q-Shaman, and yes, sick, who stormed the Senate chamber on January. That's
no, I got it. I got to keep going. Yeah.
Who stormed the Senate chamber? Stormed the Senate chamber. Shit up your nose. When you have an armed escort of the government, i.e., the Capitol Police, escort you to a location, that is the opposite of storming. Was sentenced to 41 months behind bars on Wednesday for his involvement in the protest at the Capitol. When you use language like the attack on the Capitol, you're lying. All right? Peaceful protesters entering a building under armed police escort is not the same, absolutely not the same, as BLM terrorists firebombing federal courthouses while they're occupied.
Actual police stations.
It is not the same as armed BLM, Antifa, and DNC protesters standing outside of the courthouse while the jury deliberates in the sham of a trial against poor Kyle Rittenhouse so that they can threaten and intimidate a jury through walls. Right? We are not the same. Chansley, 34, from Phoenix, pleaded guilty in September to one felony count of obstruction for his role in trying to block the counting of the 2020 Electoral College votes. He faced a maximum of 20 years in prison on the charge, but federal prosecutors sought a sentence of 51 months, the longest requested sentence in a January 6th investigation to date. That's it. He's been convicted on one felony count of obstruction. And we're going to have a conversation about that. Oh God, there's so much here. U.S. District Judge Royce Lamberth handed down the 41-month sentence in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia on Wednesday. He also sentenced Chansley to 3 years probation once he's released. So they've just ruined 6 years of this man's life, in addition to the nearly full year that they've already stolen from him. For the crime of obstruction. And let's be very clear. The only reason, it is very clear from the proceedings so far, the only reason that charges stuck on this guy here is because he pleaded guilty to them.
Well,
and we're in September. Okay? So, after half a year in prison, and by all accounts, a large bit of which was spent in solitary confinement, and during which period he and those like him were subjected to abuse and essentially torture by the guards in these prisons. So after that, after what one might call cruel and unusual punishment and the unreasonable denial of bail without hearing, which is a right you're protected against by the Eighth Amendment. So after a gross violation of this man's Sixth and Eighth Amendment rights, and obvious, clear misconduct and mistreatment of the prisoners following this incident, where, by the way, the majority of people were charged with nothing more than trespassing. They didn't even get trespassing to stick on Jacob Chansley, and instead he's been charged with obstruction, to which he pled guilty after being essentially tortured for about 6 months. And that's the only charge they could get to stick to him. That means, quite clearly, that there was never a case to be brought against any of these people with a reasonable expectation to secure a conviction by prosecutors.
Okay. All right, look, there's two things, okay? And you're right, there's a lot here, and, there's a lot of nuance. I am not going to give any details about the statement that I am about to make. But I know what it's like to be locked down for an extended period of time. And I promise you, it only takes a couple of days before you start thinking about what compromises you're willing to make to get the hell out of that little room. Okay? Like, it's a thing. All right? It is a real thing. Like, doing that lockdown for 23 hours a day, and you get 1 hour a day potentially to walk out of that room. Yeah, that's pretty miserable. Okay? And the fact that he pled guilty in September and didn't bother getting a sentence until November. And I get that he gets time served for everything, from September to November essentially was no longer dead time. But that, in and of itself, okay, go back to your tiny little room while we decide, we're going to think about what we want to do with you. Like they didn't already know what they were going to do with him. Okay? Like that is... If the biggest piece of shit in your society does not have certain inalienable rights, none of you, not me, not Chris, none of you have inalienable rights. That's the way rights work. Bad people get them too. And let's just assume that Q-Shaman is a bad dude. He's a full-blown corn pop, right?
I might give him corn fed, but
he gets inalienable rights. Okay?
Did you know corn pops are a chocolate cereal?
No.
That's a racist joke.
I don't...
Corn pop was a bad dude.
Oh. Man, I must need more coffee because I don't know if I underthought that one, overthought that one, whatever.
Well, we started a fresh pot before we came down here, so let's All
right. But here's the thing, okay? first of all, the overarching narrative that January 6th was somehow this violent insurrection is just absolutely not true. All the people that died that day, the only one that was actually killed that day as a result of the activities of that day was Ashley Babbitt, an unarmed woman who was shot by a Capitol Hill police officer. And funny, the media...
He was a hero. Didn't you hear it?
Well, look, the media's real good at getting leaked body cam footage whenever a white cop shoots a black dude. We're real good at getting that footage. But suddenly a white woman who happens to be... Wasn't she a vet? Or was she just...
We're real good at getting the least charitable of that footage.
Look,
we're also real good at hiding the George Floyd kicking a cop while he shoved his way through a police car footage for a year. But yes, Ashley Babbitt, much like Jacob Chansley, was a vet. Okay. Now, if she hadn't been, in all fairness, if she had not been murdered by an overzealous black Capitol police officer.
Oh, he was black?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, go figure.
And he's a hero because...
Oh, no wonder they want to...
Oh, yeah.
They want to keep all this... See, I didn't even know he was black.
Oh, okay? Yeah.
And look, that's actually something worth speaking about. With the way the media has obfuscated this story, it is difficult to know what is true and what is not. When this story first broke, when Chris and I did our show on January 7th, we had a very heated discussion where I was very tough on the protesters. And I'll tell y'all, I made a mistake. The mistake was I thought that the media was incapable of fooling me again. Okay, I mean, I believed you.
That's him. He shot her.
I believed you. You're a rather authoritative source.
I'm just
sharing for the audience's benefit. I got you. I made the mistake of thinking that the media no longer possessed the ability to trick me.
I'm sorry, Major. My coffee pot is a time machine. It slows down time while making coffee and speeds up time after you drink the coffee. Sorry, Major. It's not that it speeds up time after you drink the coffee. What happens is once you finish your coffee cup, it's actually a spatial distortion that moves the bathroom further and further away as your colon starts to catch up. Good luck with that sprint.
Right. Anyhow.
Sorry.
I'm trying to...
There's some science fiction jokes that I just can't ignore.
See, but no, that was a bathroom joke dressed up in a science fiction suit, okay? Let's
Absolutely.
be honest. Okay?
Oh, yeah. It was highbrow toilet humor.
Okay, fair. All right, as long as we're all on the same page.
That's my specialty.
There were some things that I said...
Skiing.
No, that is not the same thing at all. There were some things that I said on January 7th that I still stick by, though. Like, for one, that this was a mistake. To do what was done on January 6th was a terrible mistake because it's going to be used in the way that it's being used now. Okay?
This is something we still disagree on, but not wholeheartedly. So, I just want to say that now, and we can come back to the argument in just a minute.
Okay. But here's the other part of it, and I'll just go ahead and throw out the other thing that we may have some disagreement on. I think in the case of the Q-Shaman, okay, charging him with obstruction, while extreme, I want to say this the right way, I don't know that it's entirely inappropriate because he was not the protest. He was a protestor, and he was attempting to disrupt the proceedings themselves. I do think the vast majority of the people that it turns out that the guards just like opened the door and were like, well, yeah, come on in. Sure.
And walked with them to the chamber.
I don't think necessarily all of them were trying to disrupt the proceedings. But
yeah, from the video that we have available now, it is irrefutable that they did the Capitol protesters did not breach the Capitol. Like, that's a thing that absolutely 100% did not happen. The police actively escorted them all the way to the chamber.
Right. So the Q-Shaman is a little different, though. He showed up looking for trouble. And I don't necessarily even mean violence or whatever, but he showed up looking for trouble. He was trying to make a scene. He was trying to be the ultimate walking meme. And to his credit, he succeeded.
No, he's been to a lot of other protests, gatherings, rallies, Trump rallies, things of that nature, wearing that same getup. I saw him in several. I worked briefly doing copy editing for this website earlier this year, and I first saw him in a speech that was being given after the election, but before January 6th, with General Flynn speaking to a large gathering in front of the Capitol, and our reporters at that time did an interview with him. That was the first time I became aware of the guy, and you know, I'd never been a big fan of the whole Q thing. You've probably heard me talk about it on this show before. The whole QAnon, that whole thing was not a bad conspiracy theory by right-wing lunatics. That thing, and I speak from the professional experience of a trained U.S. Army intelligence analyst, the whole QAnon phenomenon was an act of excruciatingly effective black propaganda. It began with statements, expectations, and predictions that were reasonable and probable. Got a lot of people listening because it started off with these reasonable things and then slowly ramped up into the absurd and psychotic. But once you've already swallowed a little bit of wine, it's easy to finish the glass before you realize there's hemlock in it, right? It was the whole QAnon thing, black propaganda mechanism that worked on the effect of slowly boiling the frog, with the explicit intention of creating visible actors like the Q-Shaman, so for the express purpose of making a certain segment of the population look crazy. And it was incredibly effective because, one, it resulted in there being enough people who were actually visibly crazy as they spouted off the crazier Q theories, and that effect was compounded even further by groups like CNN, MSNBC, CBS, etc., being then able to say all white people, and especially the straight white males, and anybody, no matter what color or they are, if they vote for Trump, intend to vote for Trump, or did vote for Trump, are part of the QAnon phenomenon. Even if you've disavowed Q, if you're in any way not a BLM flag flyer, then you are a Q supporter.
Yeah,
they were able to make that definition to pigeonhole people in the minds of, and it only mattered for one side, in the minds of all the BLM terrorists and DNC voters. Now, we have done something similar. We have done something similar as far as the association piece, not the generation of the black propaganda. We don't have to generate the black propaganda. BLM is all the propaganda we need to look at and say, oh, you people are psychopaths. Because if you voted for a Democrat, you voted for someone who offered and delivered material, financial, moral, and logistical support to BLM, Antifa, Planned Parenthood, and the DNC. All four, clearly, by legal definitions, are domestic terrorist groups to the extent that there is such a legal definition. If the argument can be made by any legal mind that what happened on January 6th was an insurrection, which, by the way, that argument has been refuted by the FBI, who has an animus to support that argument. Right? When you see a group that wants to find biased results from a test, fail to find the results toward which they are biased, those results earn a certain level of credibility. if the FBI, who has clearly been in active collusion with the DNC to pursue illegitimate investigations based on not just bad, but false, clearly fabricated, not we know that the Russia hoax evidence was fabricated because it obviously must have been. No, we know it because we have the evidence to prove that claim. And the FBI has failed to make their case to argue that this was an insurrection that was planned and coordinated in any way, and have stated as much on the record in court. Right? So, on the left, you don't need propaganda. The right doesn't need propaganda to show you that the people on the left are psychotic and they're supporting the enemy. On the right, we have been victimized by such black propaganda, which has managed to bamboozle a small segment of the right that are probably the lower informed right-hand voters, and that has been used to associate everybody on the right, which includes anybody who still believes that free speech should be a thing, that we're all the same creature as the Q-Shaman. And all that even precedes the problems with this case. In the case where someone is charged with obstruction and nothing else, think back to Donald Trump being, they tried to say, well, he tried to obstruct the investigation. Well, the investigation found nothing. There was no underlying crime. There's no impetus to obstruct. A crime requires means, motive, and opportunity. If there's no underlying crime for obstruction, then there's no motive for obstruction. Ergo, obstruction is not on the table.
Well, but here's the thing. With the Q-Shaman, obstruction was on the table because he was trying to obstruct the proceedings. They weren't saying he obstructed an investigation into a crime. It's not that type of obstruction.
It's obstruction of Congress. You're correct. This is slightly different.
And it is what he was trying to do. Now,
and in fairness, with that argument for the fact of his being charged with obstruction, there is an underlying crime, and that is that the Congress was going to certify that vote to begin with.
YouTube hyperbole. Okay. Oh my, riding the rails, huh?
Disregard that shit, Wojcicki.
Anyhow, I scrolled down further in the article.
We'll be on Rumble, by the way.
Look, I scrolled down further in the article because there was something that I wanted to see, and we don't even have to pull the article back up. It does mention the fact that this guy's got documented mental health issues, and that's going to end up being its own show, something that we come back and address one day. There is a deep flaw in America's incarceration system where that net does catch a lot of people with mental health problems that don't necessarily have criminal intent. And this guy appears to be one of those people. And you could argue that if you're running around Washington, D.C. shirtless in January, you crazy. Because it's cold in D.C. It's a thing that happens, right? The wind comes off the river and it's miserable, man. But that being said, here's the thing, okay? Let's flip it around. Let's say Donald Trump won the most free and secure and awesome election ever in history. Okay, let's say. Well, no, I mean this is a specific thought experiment. Okay, and then BLM shows up at the Capitol and disrupts the certification of the election. You want people to go to jail. I mean, if they're not shot on the spot, you want people to go to jail.
And here's where we principally disagree on your assertion that the actions of January 6th were a mistake. Because your position, as you've stated, is that it was a mistake for what happened on January 6th to happen because it it serves as ammunition for the left to keep making the argument that the right is unhinged, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, let me be clear, just to define, one of my big problems with it is if you're going to do something like this, you don't do it in half measures. If you're going to storm the Capitol, go ahead and own that shit and storm and occupy the Capitol. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure. And the enemy will win, and then the winner always gets to define the narrative going forward.
And now we come back to my problem with your argument. The winner doesn't get to define the narrative going forward. The left gets to define the narrative going forward. No matter what we win, the narrative is still controlled by the left because it controls the apparatus of propaganda, Hollywood, mainstream media, etc., etc. Even on the alternative media platforms, right? YouTube is not an alternative media platform anymore. Let's be clear about that. We can sit here and make our arguments. We can state our cases until we state them clearly. Until we show them with evidence and make statements so clear that they're irrefutable. At which point we get thrown off. YouTube just shuts us down, and the left gets to operate on the assumption, and not incorrectly, that they can, at a minimum, through that mechanism, minimize the reach of any speech that we wish to assert. Now, the January 6th thing, if it was BLM that was there, yes, I would want to see people arrested and tried, because we know, and we don't have to theorize about this or make hypotheticals about this. We know that the damages from BLM rioting were over 1,000 times more significant by financial calculation than what occurred at the Capitol. At the Capitol, they're alleging that there were $1.5 million in damages to the building as a result of the protest. And there were some people who did some stupid shit, tearing artwork off of walls. Some of the building was damaged. $1.5 million. That $1.5 million includes the restoration of artwork. The billions of dollars of damage done by BLM
across
includes
multiple
businesses
cities
that will never come back. Includes people like Officer David Dorn, who lost his life, murdered by BLM protesters.
Yeah, yeah. And look, that's actually something that I want to talk about tomorrow. There's a philosophical thing.
Yeah, Rittenhouse is in court because he refused to be David Dorn.
Actually, I'm going to go even further than that. I think it's going to be fun when we can come back to that case and discuss it. But look, part of the reason why I say it's a mistake is not just because you can't do things in half measure. Like, this outcome was entirely predictable. One thing that is different about this situation as opposed to so many others, like, there's a lot of people where, you know, once you do the equivalent of the change my mind with the Kyle Rittenhouse thing and you point out to them, you realize Kyle didn't shoot any black people, right? And you know how many people don't even know that?
I know.
Right? That Kyle didn't shoot any, and that all by itself, like, it's like dropping an Alka-Seltzer water.
Dude, when Anna Kasparian is popping up on Twitter to say, God, I have to change my mind on the Kyle Rittenhouse thing because I thought everybody he shot was black. Okay, for starters, you're a racist. The color of the people that attempted to murder you does not have a bearing on whether or not you're allowed to defend yourself against attempted murderers. By the way. But let me finish my point on the if it were BLM instead of us, as it were, at the Capitol on January 6th. We know from recent history that had it been BLM activists at the Capitol under the opposite circumstances, that there would not be a Capitol building now. They would have burned it down and murdered police officers. We know this because it is their habitual, established pattern. It is what they do. They burn down federal buildings and murder police officers.
Well, they're Marxists. Marxists have to disrupt things in order to gain power. Like, it's kind of the 101. But in this case, okay, and here's why I briefly referenced the Rittenhouse thing. In this case, there are people, a lot of people don't possess mine and your ability to take a set of facts, even if those facts are extremely uncomfortable to consider, and slightly or dramatically alter their opinion about a situation. I was much harder on the protesters in the beginning, and then as more evidence came out and I realized that the media was trying to paint a certain picture, I realized that some of my positions on this issue had to change, because it was very obvious that what happened on January 6th was being exaggerated to a terrible degree. Mm-hmm. Most people, even intelligent, plugged-in people that are on our side, just can't, won't, don't, whatever. They don't do that. They are going to believe for the rest of their lives that Trump whipped up a mob and tried to get that mob to go hang Mike Pence. That is what they are going to sincerely, in good faith, believe. And that is why I think that this was a mistake. It was a trap, and you even said, like, there's some glowworm element to this.
Yes, 100%.
And I 100% agree that this was a trap. Like, when you have Alex Jones, like, standing outside with a bullhorn going, "Don't do it, it's a trap."
I was just waiting to hear him say, "Don't go to Moab."
I mean, I got to tell you, when Alex Jones says you're going too far, you might want to listen. Just a thought.
Because Alex Jones is always right.
Look, he's not always right.
He's
not
always
yet.
right eventually.
That's right. Not yet. Not yet. But on a long enough timeline, the survival rate for everybody is 0. And that's...
Let's see if I can find this real quick.
Oh, that's right. It is Patrick's birthday. Happy birthday, Patrick.
Oh, yeah. Hey, brother. Happy birthday.
Oh, is this? Are we ending on a meme?
Yeah, we're gonna end on a meme if I can find it real quick. God, I hope I can find it
real quick.
Keep talking.
Oh, okay. So I'm
no pressure.
None. I don't feel any pressure. I'm awesome. I have multiple ex-wives that'll tell you the opposite, but I am awesome. Okay. Oh, and Patrick says thanks. Well, okay. I'm glad we can. I'm glad we can make him happy.
You know what? That's
okay, my dude. This is fascinating content.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know what? You guys have enjoyed the show so far. So if you're still here, you've had all I owe you. Love you.
That's. I'm pretty sure that's not how this works.
Oh, yeah? The eyeball in the corner says they're still watching, so we're doing something right.
Right.
Okay, I can't find it. Hopefully I can find it later when we talk about it. But it's the list of ridiculous predictions that Alex Jones has made, and it just has some of them crossed off. And it's like confirmed on X date, and then it points to one that says, "You are here."
I've
and the one after, I don't remember what the "You are here" one, but the next one is extraterrestrial clockwork elves. Extra-dimensional clockwork elves.
Whatever, at this point. It doesn't matter if they're from another reality or from another planet. It's just
that the trend thus far suggests that we should expect them to materialize.
But there is at
earnest.
least a possibility. Like, on the one hand, it really makes me want to do ayahuasca. On the other hand, it really makes me want to not let anybody ever do ayahuasca ever. Right?
It makes me want to go find everybody who's ever been elected and make sure that they never get their hands on any ayahuasca again. Graham Norton, the guy that wrote all the books like Fingers of the Gods or whatever, he's got an opposite theory. He thinks that all elected officials should be forced to do DMT and have an out-of-body experience. I'm like, that's actually something I could get behind. Okay, well, I can't find the one I wanted to show you, so we'll end on this one. I promise I won't bring up any conspiracy theories 5 drinks later. Now, in fairness, I'm a little bigger than Alex. It might be 6 or 7 drinks later. But shit happens, my man. Shit happens. All right, that's the show for today. I got to go to work. Oh, I know. Real quick. We are doing a Thanksgiving special. Oh, yes. 1 week from today. That's right. We're working on Thanksgiving, baby. Capitalism. We love it. We love it. And that is, in fact, one of the things we are going to be thankful for. Absolutely. Is capitalism.
So please come back tomorrow for Firearms Friday.
Welcome
Let's
to
face
United
it.
Theocracy of Capitalism, where the dollar is Almighty God and possessions are 9/10 of your commandments, as it should be.
Oh, Patrick says Graham Nash. Graham Norton does a talk show on the BBC. Thank you, Patrick. I knew it was one of those two things. Anyhow, but yeah, come back tomorrow for Firearms Friday. My favorite segment of the week. I'm pretty sure your favorite segment of the week. Most of your favorite segments of the week. So far, it's the only thing that has managed to maintain integrity throughout our entire process, and now even has its own stinger. So we love you guys. Please like, share, subscribe.
Alex, second vaccine gift card giveaway in Rockdale coming up. Brother, if you're down, I'm up to trolling. Let's do it. Give us a call. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right.
And go check us out on all the alternate platforms. We need likes, shares, and subscribes there too, because eventually YouTube's just going to kick us out.
Right.
We'll see you next time. Faff.